Yeah. Deb, this thing is dead. I need a battery.
Okay.
They got coffee here.
Danny, you want to throw, should we throw the tables out or what?
I need to throw a few of them up.
I don't know where
Here, Deb, you can sit down. Oh. Hey, Willie.
Hey, hey,
Find any?
what are they looking for?
Tables.
Those green tables are right there. You put those in front of the chair.
Got a couple of white ones in there.
Oh, shit. Deb's here.
It's just
There you
How you doing? Good.
How you?
Yeah, not bad.
Where you going with that, Mitch?
I guess there's two on this row. We got two white ones.
Got all the chairs hooked up.
Yeah, they got them.
Yeah,
They got them all out there.
it looks good. Thank God. Western Club went another month.
I know, I just left there. I left the meeting early, so I wouldn't be late.
I don't think I'm gonna go back till I got,
What are they doing out there?
still gotta wear a mask for another month.
Yeah, I forgot, I mean, I was halfway and I went, oh shit.
That's at the Western Club.
Yeah.
A lot of the stores are still requiring it.
How's the pizza bit?
Yeah, it's all right. I can't find people to work.
I know, I've seen everywhere I've driven by, cause everybody's getting a check. When's that run out?
That's
September.
Biden just extended it till September.
what?
No, kidding?
Leave it up to the government.
Oh, I'm telling you, anything.
I think they wanna just ruin small businesses and ruin the middle class, and they want everybody to be dependent on them.
And then I can't get my driver's license because when I was born, my name's William C. McFall Jr., William Clyde Paul Jr., my dad. My dad passed away in '09, and my accountant said, hey, change your name. You know, since you're not a junior, since your dad passed away. My driver's license, I take my birth certificate, my old driver's license that I've been getting since 1976. And they said, my taxes, it's gotta match what your taxes say. They said it's not me. So I have to get a passport, change all the things. It's just ridiculous. Anything they get involved in.
Yeah, and they wanna take over healthcare.
I paid, yeah, I know, I paid tax consistently since I got sober. You know, and that's just, I go, you know where I am when I'm writing the check, here I am. I can't get a $20 driver's license. So there was a policeman in there the other day when they denied me again. I said, hey, listen, this takes.
They just missed off.
And he
Missed off
said,
from this side.
there's a lot of people like that, so we're gonna be lenient.
Yeah, I don't think they're pressing that.
I said, I've never been in jail before because of the license.
Well,
That's
so
not on my record.
What's
the
going on?
only problem is
Is it not
without the
that bad?
mouse, I don't know how to make you the full screen.
Oh, shit, well, the battery's dead. Well, you don't have any batteries here, do you?
What are
It's,
they, double A?
Hey.
it's,
spit on my cup.
one, one battery.
What is
Oh,
it?
here we go.
Spit
Here we
it,
go.
take it out,
There it goes.
spit it sometimes.
I got it.
I've got some
Okay,
double A's
we're
and
good.
triple A's on my case.
Oh, then that's
We're good.
You have one of these,
that's a double.
A, yeah.
double A?
I'll look at it.
Oh, thank you.
If not,
It just takes one?
Yeah. Well, you can use your finger, but it's easier to. Mario. What's up, pal?
Doing good?
Huh, how you doing?
Good.
Still wearing a mask?
You don't have to.
Oh, the coffee's good, Willie. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, did y'all make some?
I made a pot.
Sure, help yourself.
So far, I had 2 cups. Robin, how are you, honey?
Homemade coffee.
All right.
You did any damage?
Hey, Charlotte. Yeah.
Hey, Danny.
How are you, honey?
I am wonderful. How are you?
How are you? Jesus, Mitch. Dan, how you doing, Dan?
Hey, Danny, doing well.
Good.
Did Shannon text you?
Uh-uh.
She wanted to know the Zoom number because she's driving the cow.
Oh, I have it here. The Zoom number is,
Let me take a picture of it. I'll just send it.
yeah. So this is live and that's the recording.
Live motion. Perfect.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
It should be good.
All right. Should be good.
I said,
Let's see. Well, back in business.
You can take some more chairs apart. I'll put them back together.
I'm gonna do one more thing right there.
Yeah, I got a text from here, 29.
We've got plenty of room over here.
Oh, cool. And the operation that went very well, and she was doing fine.
Rich.
Yeah,
Long time no see.
yeah.
See that?
I guess Elizabeth made it through, they cracked her chest open. They.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of pioneering operation.
They, started at one. The text at 4:25. Probably with her, but I was in the hallway.
Sue? Oh, well.
They started at
Always out.
Yeah, I'm like here. The horn will take 2 days. What do you wait?
Morning, they were gonna start at 9. How could she
Oh.
stay here?
I think it's like
Right there.
every day.
But she
Every
had-
day, 365 days a year. I don't know.
Richard, you want to go-
I know, I brought,
I'll get
I
later.
brought, yeah.
Yeah. You're late this year.
Get there, Danny.
Yeah.
So it's a lot at once.
I think
Hey, this is,
Yes.
this issue for us is one of the best ones.
that's it.
It has only short stories.
I just started.
There's 6 of them. Yeah, I think sometimes they step.
I went to a grapevine meeting down at Kelly.
Right.
Floyd, like, yeah.
Honestly, since they did it, first people were good. They still wear masks. Right? And I like, I felt weird at first.
So,
but then I was like,
After that, I subscribed to it, and my wife automatically, and I said,
they just sweat all day long.
Oh.
There's the answer.
Somewhere. I don't think. She was working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Ooh, really? Well, she's supposed to have.
We hit it off the first
Yeah. I
day
just
we met.
loaded it.
Over there on Sunday.
I'll show you. pictures.
And then I did
I was trying to get somebody to move the ride with the truck.
high chair for it.
This cabin.
Yeah, I fixed it, and it was broken. It was one that, Rob,
And it's at least 4.
so,
Right.
Yeah.
she asked me if I knew parts that were working on. So, when she looked up my number in her phone.
Now I can move it around the garage.
Yeah.
It's not like where I put it.
She had next to my name Carpenter. And I was like,
$25.
Really? Where'd you see it?
oh, well, that's how I
Only
equated
if
to
you
fix that.
take care of someone else.
I'll
But
bet.
I'm not a carpenter.
So
All I have to do is.
bought a new
pull it,
couch
and I
today,
have to
right?
Hey,
Waiting for it to come in.
what is it?
So I texted Vlad and because he's got that sober house. I said, hey, I'm gonna have a couch and a chase to get rid of. You know, does your house need any furniture? So he just texted me back and he was like, the attics in my house have standards. They want to see pictures.
Points that-
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's typical.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna give this stuff to y'all. Well, I don't know. What does it look
Well,
like?
it was a lot of people.
So if it's up to my standard.
Cinco de Mayo too.
Anyway,
But I've been there since.
Dude, our house, we bought a new house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
alright, nice.
I brought some couches back.
Well, it's nothing like that, but it's.
Video that's going around on the internet.
Hi, Kim.
Got shot by the fence.
Do what?
Hi, Danny.
How are you?
Walking
Good.
on- Shot by a cattle fence.
I don't have them with me.
And it-
I'll
got
bring
shot.
one next week.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
12 bucks.
stupid
Yeah.
donkey on the other side of it.
Online, they're like
Doggy
14.
suck, donkey starts laughing.
Shipping, just $12.
Okay. That's messed up.
Hilarious.
Live on hers and stuff.
Yeah.
I need that. I need that. Sure. Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Saw that picture.
What we missing here? Saturday. Oh, yeah, where are they?
They might be Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, last week, yeah.
I know.
I said he's slacking.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
God. Ordered a new couch today and Vlad, you know Vlad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's got a sober house. So I texted Vlad. I said, hey, I'm gonna have a couch and a chase that I'm gonna get rid of it.
Yeah.
If you want it, your house, your sober house needs it. Come get it. He's like, well, I don't know. Let me call the guys in the house. So he just texted me back and he was like, they want to see pics. They want to make sure they're
Oh,
like,
God.
all right.
Where's Scott at?
Now we have
Scott
standards.
is, taking care of his girlfriend, I think. She's sick this week. He was sick last week. I don't know about the week before. I think he was still sick then.
Last week he was sick, yeah.
Not gonna lie.
That day we were up there.
Bless him. That's what we say.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. It's good to see your faces.
Glad you got a battery.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Ah, so no more masks. That's good. All right. So, first time we don't have a mask and half the people don't show up. Okay. All right, I want to go over a couple of things before we move forward. The first thing on, let's go back to page 60. And a few weeks ago, I mentioned to you that when Bill was riding, he got real mad because they made him change some stuff, You remember that? But I had a mature moment that week. I couldn't remember where it was. And so on page 60, the 3 pertinent ideas, the ABCs of how it works. And the original manuscript, let's see here. Deb went to the bed. Okay, so the original manuscript, after the ABCs, there was a sentence that was removed. And this is what got Bill all mad. So it had the ABCs, and then it used the original manuscript said, if you are not convinced on these vital issues, you ought to reread the book to this point or else throw it away. Exclamation point. So if you ever get a chance to read the original manuscript, you'll see that in there. And that's important because that gives us some foresight on what Bill's intent was. Okay. So Bill's intent for us was to make sure that you got a good first and second step. And if you don't have a good first and second step, that you should go back and do the work on 1 and 2 before you move on, because otherwise you're going to get loaded. And so he uses that harsh language of you ought to reread the book to this point or else throw it away. Throw the book away because he ain't going to do you no good, basically, right? That's what he's saying. So, and then after that, he had said, I'm quitting, I'm not writing no more. And then they had the big argument and they said, okay. And then so from this point forward, he uses the word must like 40 something times. But before that was only a couple of times because they kept changing it on him. So that was the first thing I wanted to touch on. All right. So now it says the ABCs. Now it says being convinced we're at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. So if you ever get a chance to read the original manuscript, it's interesting. There's not many big changes, but that's one of them. Then he says after that, he says, if you are convinced, you are now at step 3. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to go over is, let's go to page 63. Now, I had 2 people call me during the week that wanted to talk about this because they just couldn't get actually, both of them are in Europe and they don't get to, this recording is up on Thursdays. So tomorrow it'll be up on YouTube and you could watch it, and that's when they watch it because of the time difference. And so they called me over the weekend and both of them had the same thing. They couldn't get past the fact because they've always been told that the top of page 63 is the 3rd step promises. And I called them the 10 results of the 2nd step. Okay. Which is a big difference. It's the 10 results of step 2. So on the bottom of page 62, he says, this is the how and why. He said, we had to have God's help. This is the how and why. First of all, we had to quit playing God. We talked about that, right? It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He's the principal. We are his agents. He's the father. We are his children. If you didn't do any work in the 2nd step, if you didn't start searching for God and do all the stuff that we did in step 2, where we actually made a list of what we think and believe about God, we pressed, changed, and rearranged that list till we had something that we were comfortable with. And then we started doing the fake it till you make it prayer until we're, is anybody still doing that? The fake it till you make it prayer? Okay, good. And you can keep doing it till you don't need to do it no more. But if we didn't do all that stuff, there's no way that we could be at this point and allow God to direct our lives. And there's no way that we can act as his agent and with him as the principal, and we wouldn't be able to understand that we're the children, he's the father. So the bottom of page 62, this paragraph that I just read, we're allowed to understand this and do this because of the work we did in step 2. And then it says on page 63, when we sincerely took such a position, what position? What we just talked about, letting God direct my life, understanding that he's the principal, I'm just his agent, and that he's the father and I'm his child. Okay. When we sincerely took such a position. Now, again, you cannot sincerely take that position without taking a look at what you think and believe about God. You just can't do it. And most people don't do that. They just get to the point where they're at the second step and they ask them, they just, okay, are you willing to believe? And they say, yeah. And there goes my book again, falling apart. I think it's time for me to get a new book. So now we're at the page, now we're at 63, and what people are calling the third step promises is, how are these the third step promises if you haven't done the third step? Because after this paragraph, it says we were now at step 3. So you can't get a promise. None of the promises you'll find in this book. Let's talk about that for a minute. What is the promise? Or I like to call them results, actually. Excuse me. What is the result of doing a good first step? Does anybody know?
Knowing who you become.
No.
It's changed.
You don't drink. You don't drink, you don't use. That's a result of doing a good first step. Okay? Yeah. Now, the second step, a result of the second step, is right here on top of page 63. Let me show you where the third step promise is. It's on page 68. You go to page 68. The second paragraph. Where it says, we are in the world to play the role he assigns. And then here's the third step promise. Just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. That is the third step promise.
I'm sorry, what page?
68, second paragraph, last sentence. If you are able to match calamity with serenity, not serenity with calamity. If you're able to match calamity with serenity, that's the promise of the third step.
What's the difference?
The difference?
Yeah.
If you match serenity with calamity, that means when you have serenity, you're going to throw in some calamity.
Oh, okay.
Here it's saying that he enables us to match calamity with serenity. So if everything is crazy around me and I stop, I could take that moment and turn it into a serene moment. I have that ability as a result of the third step.
So where you say 10 results of the second step, I was always told that's a spiritual contract. Those 10.
A spiritual contract?
Yeah, like in step 2, that's a spiritual contract. It's a contract with an employer.
I'm not sure what you mean by a spiritual
Well, because,
contract.
like in the paragraph before, you're the father, we're his children, the director, I'm the agent, principal, and then you go on, you're talking about the 10 results, and I've always thought that's like a contract.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know where I was told it.
I don't know how. I don't think that's wrong or bad. What you're saying. I've never, I've never heard that or have anybody heard anybody share that and teach that. But it doesn't sound like it's a bad deal, But the only point that's important is that you have to understand that these are not third step promises. They're not. And then, and so, and you have to be able to answer yes to all 10 of these things. Okay, so it says, we had a new employer being all powerful. Do you have right here, right now, do you have a new employer that's all powerful? Yes, okay. Is he providing what you needed if you keep close to him and perform his work well? Yes, okay. Established on such a footing, have you become less and less interested in yourself, your little plans and designs? Yes, okay. More and more, are you being interested in seeing what you could contribute to life? Yes. I'm assuming yes. Have you feel this new power flow in? Yes. Are you enjoying peace of mind? Yes. Okay. You discovered that you could face life successfully? Yes. You become conscious of his presence? Yes. Have you begun to lose the fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter? Yes. You were reborn. If you agree with all of those things, then it says you're now at step 3. I think I said a few weeks ago, how are you comfortable when you always have to prove something? Right?
I'm telling you here, Danny,
Huh?
I'm gonna roll into step 3, and I can't say that all that's going on in any time of day. That's why I gotta have trouble with that. I can read it, agree with it. Start being there.
Then you probably need to, if you listen to Bill Wilson's intent, then you need to do one or two things. You need to go back and redo what you did in 1 and 2. I don't know where you're lacking because I didn't go over stuff with you. Or throw the book away. So it's that simple. It's not a question of, well, okay, you'll get it later. No. The intent that Bill wanted you to get was you're not going to get it later. You may get it stronger later, but you have to get it now before you go on to the 3rd step. That these are the foundation. 1 and 2 is the foundation of your recovery. And if that's not in place, then you're building a house on a very shaky foundation. And we all know what happens when the big bad wolf comes around and he huffs and he puffs, he's going to blow your house down. Okay. So you don't want that to happen, right? So when the big bad wolf comes around, he can huff and puff all he wants. If you have all these things in place here, then you're able to match calamity with serenity. And the big bad wolf don't blow your house down. Does that make sense? Okay. So there was a couple of people that had issues with that, and I went over it with them personally, and now we're going over it again with you. Okay. All right, so, and then the last thing that I want to talk about is that the misconception is, and I'm not sure it's such a misconception, it's people believe that steps 4 and 5 go together. And they really don't. They're separate steps. If anything, 3 and 4 go together. 3 and 4. Now that's not an opinion. Let's go to page 64. Top of the page. Though our decision, this 3rd step, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. So the direction here is that we're going to do the 3rd step and we're going to immediately, at once, start our inventory. So if you look at that, then really what goes together is 3 and 4. Because there's nowhere in the 4th step or after the 4th step or beginning on the 5th step where it says you do this and then go right into the next step, the 5th step. But this is giving us direction that, so what's important about that is that, you know, most people don't sit down and knock their 4th step off in one shot. They just don't. In the olden days, they did it in an hour or two. Well, today people don't do that. So some people take a long time to do a 4-step, which is not good either. But there's got to be a happy medium somewhere in there, a week or two, 3 weeks maybe. But the thing that's important is that each time you stop writing and then you pick it back up a day later or 2 days later, you can't just pick it up and start writing again. You have to do the 3rd step and invite God back in before you start writing on the 4th step. Why? Because the direction said that. Though it is a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. So the direction is the 3rd step, boom, right into the 4th step. So each time you start writing a 4th step, you need to first bring God back in with your 3rd step. Invite God back in and start writing. Otherwise, I'm writing. And when I'm writing, it's not going to be a fearless and moral inventory. It's going to be a fearful and bullshit inventory, because I'll be editing it. I want to look good, I don't want to sound so horrible, All right. Anybody got any questions on that stuff? Is anybody still going to want to talk a little more about the top of page 63? I don't want to go, there's no need that we can go fly by it if somebody's got a question. Everybody's okay with that? All right, so we're on page 63 then. Come in. All right, so it says we were now at step 3. And many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Now, that is not the 3rd step. If I had $1 for every time I heard somebody share in the meeting how spiritual it was that they did the 3rd step with their sponsor, that they got down on their knees and they said that prayer, and that was their 3rd step, I could retire. This is not the 3rd step. It is just a prayer. It is just a prayer. Again, not my opinion. Let's look what the book says. It says we thought for, okay, I'm going to go back to that for a minute. Go to the next paragraph. It says we found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it's better to meet God alone than one who might understand. The wording was, of course, quite optional.
Yeah.
We do not have optional steps. All of our 12 steps are complete as they are. None of them are optional. The only option is, do you want to do them or not? So we don't have any optional steps. So if the wording was, of course, quite optional, then that cannot be the step. It's just a prayer. You can use any type of wording that you're comfortable with. And in fact, I've worked with many people over the years that continue to use the fake it till you make it prayer in place of this. And it works just as well for them. So then if that's not the 3rd step, then what is the 3rd step? We haven't found anything that says this is the 3rd step, or have we not? We have, really. We found it twice. We found it on page 60 where it says if you are okay with steps 1 and 2, you're at step 3. And then it goes a couple of pages of talking about self-will. And so your work is to understand how self-will has infiltrated your life and has messed up your life in all different areas, right? So that's a lot of work to be done, okay? So that's important. And then all the stuff that we've talked about. Understanding that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles, and looking how we're run on 100 kinds of fears, and understanding that our troubles are our own making, and then allowing God to direct our life. All of this stuff, including looking at self-will, all of this stuff is the third step. You're going to finish it off with a prayer. Whatever your prayer is. But the prayer itself is not the third step. Now let's go back to the paragraph on page 63 where the third step prayer is. After the prayer, it says, we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. That's a big statement, people. That is a huge statement. I'm not sure how many people really put the weight to that sentence that it deserves. Because it's asking you to think about what you're going to do here in this third step. It's asking you to make sure that you're ready. You're ready for what? That you can at last abandon yourself. And look at the wording, not to him, utterly to him. So let's look up the word utterly real quick. Where is my? Does anybody have a dictionary?
Yeah.
Look up the word utterly. What does it say?
Completely and without qualification, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. So thank you. So it's asking us to make sure that we're ready, that we can abandon ourselves absolutely to God. Now, every time I've heard somebody share about how spiritual it was, they did the third step prayer with their sponsor. They did the third step with their sponsor. I've never heard anybody share after that about how they are ready to utterly abandon themselves absolutely to God. Now, I never hear any of that verbiage because they kind of just skim over that. They put the importance on the prayer rather than what it says after the prayer. And what it says after the prayer is to make sure that you're ready. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If you did not spend any time, just like if you didn't spend any time in step 2, getting in touch with a higher power, well, you can't do step 3. Well, if you didn't spend any time working on self-will, you are never going to be in the position to utterly abandon yourself to God. It ain't going to happen. Because if you're going to, what was it? Absolutely. If you're going to absolutely abandon yourself to God, then self-will is out of the picture, isn't it? But we don't really see that, do we?
Oh my God, that's a major.
Yeah, it's a major.
It's major, man.
Yeah, it's major. It's a big thing.
It is because my brain was getting away.
Yeah. Now, the good news is, going back to the next paragraph, it says, it's better to meet God alone than to one who might misunderstand. And wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we express the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning. Though, if honestly and humbly made, an effort, sometimes a great one, effect, sometimes a great one, was felt at once. So, it's only a beginning. So we can improve. You don't have, it doesn't have to be perfect. What has to be as perfect as possible for you is the utterly abandoning yourself to him. And that is impossible if you haven't taken any kind of look at self-will in your life.
So in that case, someone who's saying between the thank you prayers, how would it be possible for them to? I mean, how could you completely give yourself something?
Okay, good question. So he asked how can somebody give themselves utterly if they haven't what?
If they haven't yet established a higher power.
If they haven't yet established a higher power. You can't. You can't. what you can do and what you usually do, what usually happens is we skim past all that. And we find some, a lot of people think it's so important to get this done by next Tuesday. And that's just not the case. The book gives us timelines on some of the steps. Actually, on the fifth step is really, I think is the only one I could think of that it gives us a timeline, take an hour to do this. The rest of the stuff is the third step saying is when you're done with this, go right into the fourth step. But, and at the beginning, it's saying start the steps right away, right? We went over all of that stuff. So if you want to take somebody through the steps and they have no concept of a higher power, how far can they go? How far can they go? So is it worth time? We are on week 14. Is it worth time going over the first couple of steps, the first 3 steps? Is it worth the time to do that? Absolutely. It's absolutely worth the time, because the result on the other end is somebody that's going to be on a much stronger spiritual path than somebody that has no concept of God, but they keep going through the steps. Look at what Bill said to us. Look at what Bill's message in the original manuscript was. Throw the book away. I mean, that's not, throw the book away, he says.
That's pretty, wow. Is that why they have 1, 2, 3 meetings so much? And you hear some people in the room say, I do 1, 2, 3 on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right, and then you have just as many people say that they live in 10, 11, and 12.
well, true.
And the truth of the matter is they're both wrong, because it's a 12-step program. It's not a 1, 2, 3, not a 3-step program. It's not any of the 3 steps.
It's all 12.
The steps are not made to take any step and apply it to a problem. The steps are made to take a situation or an issue and apply the 12 steps to it.
Right.
That's what the steps are made for.
So by reading this, and that's what they always say about progress, not perfection. So that would be like step 6 and 7 in a way. It's a lifetime type deal of working on turning your will utterly over to God.
Yeah, but all of the steps, but 6 and 7 is very deep work. That is probably the deepest work, even though it's only got a little paragraph or 2 in the book. But so I'm not sure that everybody that shares that, I do 1, 2, 3 every day. I'm not sure that they're wrong, and their message that they're putting out is, if a newcomer hears that, they may think something that they shouldn't, that the person's not intending them to think. I understand kind of what they're getting at when they say that, but if it's a beginner's meeting, you know what it should be? Step 1.
Yeah, I agree.
When you have a beginner's meeting, you do 1, 2, 3, you're losing people. Ain't nobody comes in the room that's on step 3. So why have a beginner's meeting with step 3? Why have a beginner's meeting with step 2? A beginner's meeting is the pre-step that we talked about early on in this study, and step 1. The step before the step and the first step. Somebody who had their hand? You had their hand.
The reality is, in AA, you might be doing the first step for once a week when you have 10 days of sobriety.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. That's what we do. Somebody says, let's do the first step. Let's do the first step. And after a while, I realized that was my big one. I was saying that.
That could be.
I didn't know what I was really.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say the words and almost cry.
Yeah.
Believe this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
Yeah.
I wasn't at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
Programs itself is not perfect the way it's implemented.
No.
We all try to do our best.
The program is perfect. We're imperfect. So therefore, when imperfect people try to do a perfect thing, it becomes not so perfect. But good. It gets really good though.
Interesting.
It gets real and it gets good and it gets real good. So, all right. So the importance then is not preaching that there's, you know, a way to do this that's like those people that do the, whatever they call that program, and they go through the steps in 5 1-hour things, you know. That's pretty tough. I sure wouldn't want anybody sponsoring me that did the steps in 5 1-hour sessions, you know. But so there's some work to be done. And if we do the work and we follow the direction in the book, then we can expect to get the results that the book is promising us. When you start doing other things than what the book says, who knows what you're going to get? You might get a home run. You might get a grand slam home run. Oh, and you just might get drunk too. Who knows? Or you might get anywhere in between that. And the results that are written in this book are results of doing what the book says. Not your little twist to what the book says. So I hope when I share with you guys, I hope, you know, I have different, I don't stay 100% in the book, but I always go back to the book to prove the point. And I hope I stay true to that, you know, that's what we're trying to do here. So sometimes other things than the book will help you understand what the book is saying. All right. Anybody got any questions on any of that? No questions on the first 3 steps at all. Anybody got any questions on the first 3 steps in Cyberland there? I know everybody says no, and then people call me all week long. They text me questions, they call me up, they got questions. Ask them now. So if you got a question, somebody else probably thinking the same thing.
I have a question.
There you go. Who's that, Charlotte?
Teresa.
Teresa. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Dan. I have 2 new sponsees. They're not new to the program. They've had other sponsors before me. They're both coming off relapses, and they are telling me that they've gone through the first 3 steps and that they feel like what they need to do is inventory and confess. And so I have a 5th step appointment with one of them Saturday. And so should I stop them, even though they're feeling like they really want to get all this off their chest, like now? Should we?
Yeah, that's like kind of going to the doctor and telling the doctor what he needs to do for me. It doesn't really help, you know. Anybody that drank or used is on step 1. I don't care how long they've been around. What was that guy's name from California? He was funny. He used to share from the podium. Unfortunately, we don't have been around chips. We don't give out been around chips. So it doesn't matter how long they've been around and what they've done before. Even if they had 15, 20 years sober and they got drunk, they're on step 1. Anybody that drinks or uses is on step 1. And if you don't follow that path, you're not following the book. You're following. There's something in you that's wanting them to. I know you want to help them, but there's something in you that either you're not sure of the directions that has to be, or you want them to really like you, or but you know what? If you want to help somebody, you have to understand that sometimes, you know, you're just gonna. They're not going to like what you got to say. And if they want to write the prescription, tell them to find another doctor. But, you know, this is anybody that comes to me that just drank and used is on step 1. There's nothing else to talk about. They're on step 1. Let's go back to the beginning, because if you got drunk, you got 1 day sober, 2 days sober, 1 week sober, and you certainly ain't doing no 5th step with me, because I ain't listening to that shit. I have no desire to sit down and listen to somebody tell their 5th step that got drunk last week. So I hope that helps you, but
it does. Thank you. I appreciate your.
Be firm with that. Just be firm, because that's the right thing to do. Good question, though. Who else has a question? Anybody else? We don't give out been around chips. Yeah, Mitch.
Been around.
Mitch got a whole bunch of it around chips.
I think, shouldn't you feel good about a step when you completed it?
Not the first step. He asked if you should feel good after you finish a step, not the first step. You should feel like shit after the first step. Don't forget, the second step is a promise of hope. So when you're feeling, oh God, this is how I've lived and this is where I've been doing, and you got something to look forward to, it's the second step. But I don't know if you've, when I've shared before many times after I did my fifth step, I didn't feel good. I was paranoid like a son of a bitch. And I did it with a priest.
Yeah.
I did it with the priest. I thought the priest gave me up the next day. I did. I tell you the story real quick. I did my fifth step with my sponsor, but there was part of it that I couldn't tell a person, right? So I went and seen a priest, and I did my fifth step with him. And the next day I'm in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood is all one-way streets in the Bronx. And I'm sitting on a outside cafe, coffee shop, with a friend of mine, and we're sitting there and we're having some espresso. And I just shared my fifth step with the priest yesterday, and I'm watching like I always did my whole life, is watching who comes on the block, right? And I see all the way down the block, I see this unmarked detective car come on the street. First thing I said, that fucking priest gave me up. Right? The car pulls in front of the coffee shop and stops. I went, son of a bitch. Now I'm thinking, am I gonna get up and run? And I said, the hell with it. Let them take me. They get out of the car. They start walking right, and they walk right towards, looking. They're both staring right at me, and the whole time I'm going, that's it. They looked at us, and they went inside and got coffee and came back out, got in their car and left.
Was you sweating, Daddy?
I was sweating like a son of a bitch.
I bet you was.
I didn't get sober to spend the rest of my life in prison. So, yeah. So, and I felt like that for quite some time after I know people, when we get to the fifth step, we'll talk about, some people say they feel at peace with themselves and one with the world. I didn't feel any of that shit. So no, Mitch, no. The answer is no. You don't always feel good after you've done a step.
I have a lot of step, but I understand.
You can,
Yeah.
you can, and you might. Deb, can you get me some coffee, please? Thank you. Nothing in it. Yeah, no, so it's just, the results don't always come immediately.
Well, I feel like I think part of what I'm saying is feel like I've completed that step. I'm feeling a completion on it. That's what I've always kind of lacked in some places. I've gotten that though in recent years on 4 steps. I really
Yeah. You see what I wrote up here today?
can read that.
If you truly do a third step and turn your will over to the care of God, take a 10th step each day and see how he's doing. See how God's doing. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's for me. That's for me. Tell him I'm in a meeting.
Wow.
All right. So there are results that you'll get. On the first step, the result is you won't get drunk. Yes.
Tell me what your meaning of turning out last abandon ourselves utterly to him.
Yeah, we talked about that. If you would have been here on time, you would have heard that. You can always go back on the tape and watch it. But the word utterly is, somebody had a dictionary and they said it means absolutely or absolutely, right? So it's at the point they're asking you, and something interesting. I'm glad you asked me that because you made me think of this now. That sentence is after the third step prayer. So if the third step prayer was the third step, that sentence would be before that, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It would be before the prayer. But it's not, it's after the prayer. Because that's not all there is there. So he's asking yourself to make sure that you're ready. That you're ready for what? To absolutely abandon yourself to God. Are you ready for that? And what we talked about was you cannot be ready for that if you did not do any work on self-will.
And mean.
Well, of course, mean it.
Yeah, but I mean, well, hell.
Yeah. But the important thing is all the work we do on self-will, those from page 60 to 60, 61, 62 is all about self-will. Okay, good questions. Who else got a question? No, nobody? Okay. Back to page 63. Bottom of the page. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. So listen, our liquor is but a symptom. Anything you're working the steps on now, whatever that topic is you're working the steps on, is a symptom. And I shared this with you before. The steps are not designed to take care of symptoms. The steps are designed to take care of the problem. So if you practice these steps in your life, you will remove the problem. In fact, in the book later it says, we removed the drink problem. It's not with us anymore. So whatever you're working the steps on, if you do the steps properly, you will remove that problem. Guess what happens when you remove the problem?
You don't have it no more.
You don't have any more symptoms. All right? If you've had the measles and now you don't have the measles, they're gone, you don't have any symptoms of them. Or if you have a cold, you don't have the symptom. Once you've removed the problem, the symptom doesn't exist anymore. So the steps don't address the symptom, they address the problem. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So he says our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down to causes. So, and I think the reason that it tells you to at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves. So I think the reason he's saying that to us is that step 3 is going to remove self just enough to allow us to take some action. So each time you sit down to write, you have to bring that third step back in, because that's going to allow you to remove self just enough for you to take some action and do some more writing. And if you stop, when you start again, you bring the third step back in and you start writing again, because the third step will remove self just long enough for you to take some action. It's not permanent. There's nothing permanent about any of this stuff. It's a daily program. All you get, the best you're going to get out of this is 24 hours.
So when let's say we write, and then now we're going to do it again, and you're saying we need to revisit the third step. We need to invite God in.
Yes.
So basically, we just need to say our own like little prayer. God, I need your help with this. Help me get rid of my self and guide me with my writing.
Yeah, whatever your prayer is. Whatever your prayer is.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, but also, keep it in mind that you're getting rid of self-will.
Right.
That you're convinced that and that God's your director and you're the agent, he's the principal, and and he's the father and you're the child. All that stuff, he reinforces all of that stuff. And if you do that long enough, it's just second nature to you. And then what happens is you don't do it. You don't do it at all. Not that you don't know how to do it and you don't know what you're supposed to do. You just don't do it because you want something else. Yeah. And then here comes self-will, came out of nowhere and is driving the bus again. All right. And that's just what happens. But awareness is half the problem here in AA.
I really like the comment.
Go ahead.
The Grapevine has a bunch of very interesting things in it. It's a woman who talks about what stuff. Here's what it says about every write what you can, but be disciplined by it. Do the fourth step, write something new, a sentence here, paragraph there, school is all it's needed. Believe me when I say we can do this. Some days we may have 20 pages, another day just have one sentence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna share with you. I didn't even finish the 6th grade in school. I got thrown out of 3 schools in the 6th grade and that was it. I hit the streets running and been on the streets up until I crawled into these rooms. But all the time I was locked up, even as a kid, I grabbed books and I read and I came to words I didn't know and I looked them up and I taught myself all that stuff. And I write today. I've got 8 novels written. I'm working on my 9th one now. And I make myself write at least 10 minutes every day on my writing for my novels. And sometimes exactly what she just said, sometimes that stretches out to an hour or so. And sometimes it's a tough 10 minutes, but I get a sentence done. And that's exactly the truth. That's right. That's good advice. So just make yourself write something every day. And I always say, if you guys learn, and the people you're working with, if you teach them how to plan their life around recovery, instead of trying to fit recovery around their life, if you try to fit recovery around your life, you're not going to make it. But if you plan your life around recovery, you got a good shot of making it here in these rooms. But I guarantee you, anybody that comes in here and tries to fit recovery around their life, it ain't going to happen for them because we just get too busy. We're too important. We got too much shit going on, right? And we don't do what we got to do. But I know when I'm going to talk to my sponsor. I know when I'm going to talk to my sponsees. I know when I'm going to go to a meeting. I know when I'm going to do, like, I know I have to leave Norman at around 4 o'clock to get here, right? And get here in time and set up. So I know that I don't make any appointments for that time. Like this is supposed to be a commitment, right? So if somebody says, oh, let's go to an H&I meeting Wednesday night, you're supposed to say, I'm sorry, I already have a commitment. That's what you're supposed to do. If you have a commitment, you follow through with the commitment. Of course, you can always press change and rearrange things in life, but so I know it. So now the rest of my life, I can plan around recovery, and it works well. And that's a good piece of advice if you're working with new people, is to help them plan their life around recovery. Make a schedule, write it out. When you go into a meeting, when you're going to read, when you're going to talk to God, when you're going to talk to your sponsor, when you're going to work with other people, when you're going to carry the message. And then your life, it's amazing. It's amazing, but you'll be surprised that before I got sober, I didn't have time to do anything. And now that I'm sober, I got time for everything. I don't know how that works, but it works like that. So, all right. So our liquor is but a symptom. We had to get down to causes and conditions. Now, I want you to know when we talk about causes and conditions, and further down it talks about the manifestations of self, further down the page. So when we talk about causes and conditions and the manifestation of self, we are talking about the same thing. The manifestations of self and causes and conditions are the same thing.
Where is that at?
It's there somewhere.
It's self-manifested.
Yeah, self-manifested in various ways. There you go. And the second paragraph down, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. Okay. So all right, so if we're going to get down to causes and conditions, he says, therefore, we start upon a personal inventory. Now, Bill uses a brilliant idea of giving you an example of a business inventory. Can you move that then? And I'm going to share this with you, just what the book says. So, okay. So let's just do this for a minute here. You took a piece of paper, you drew a line down the middle, right? And Bill says here, A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact finding. So we're going to write over here, fact finding. Fact finding. I want to do this before we run out of time. And then he says, and a fact facing. So we want to do this fact facing. Process is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade, right? Stock in trade.
Stock in trade?
Stock in trade, yes. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods. So we're going to put damaged, unsaleable goods, okay? And to get rid of them promptly without regret, right? Get rid of them. Okay. So this is what Bill's saying a business inventory is, right here out of the book, okay? It's a fact-finding, fact-facing process about the truth about the stock in trade. And it's one object is disclosed damage on. So I want to look and see what's not working, what's no good. Now let's go look at what the fourth step says on page 59. It says made a searching and fearless moral inventory. So next to fact finding, we're going to put searching because it's the same thing, isn't it? And fact facing would be fearless. Oh, more pages, Phil. Moral inventory. So if you don't know it, it's one of the definitions of the word moral is truth. So moral. There's numerous definitions for the word moral, but one of them is truth. Inventory. And the stock in trade for us is our thinking. And the damaged or unsaleable goods is our
Regrets.
No, our stinking thinking. Stinking thinking is our flawed, I should say flawed. You should put flawed there. Our flawed thinking.
Okay.
I was trying to be funny. But flawed thinking would be better to put there. And the same thing is true for both of them. Once we understand what it is, we need to get rid of it promptly without regret. Okay, and so that's the example that Bill gives on the fourth step inventory process is he's looking at it like a business. Okay, and if you own a business, anybody owns a business, they don't understand what this is about. I have to know what I have and what I can't sell. A lot of you guys know years ago I used to have a warehouse and I had $1 million worth of clothing in there and I shipped to stores all over the world. Right. And if I didn't know what I had, I wouldn't be able to sell summer stuff and winter stuff and fall stuff. You know, I wouldn't be able to supply the stores what they needed. So this is a really good example. I don't know. Can you guys see all that? I hope. So that's a real good example of what we're going to be doing here in the fourth step. We're going to be doing an inventory just like a business does. And we're going to be looking, fact finding, we're going to be searching, fact facing, we're going to try to be fearless here. And that's why you need to do the third step and then write so you can do it fearless. And truth is moral. And it's about my thinking. It's about my flawed thinking. And one thing I want to say before we quit today is that some people will tell you that the fourth step is all about writing your life story, you know, and writing everything about the bad, the good. And listen, people, we are not inventorying any good stuff about us. You are wasting your time and not following the directions if that's what you're doing. This is not about how nice of a person I was. Whatever good quality you have, when you come out the other side of the fourth step, you'll still have that good quality. I was always, as bad as I was always kind and considerate to elderly people. That's just the way I was brought up.
What you're saying is you don't have to go to your asshole.
No, in the 10th step, the 10th step is going to be the first time is going to ask us to look at our assets and our liabilities in the 10th step. Because then you're going to say, wow, when you list your assets, you're going to say, wow, because I only had one asset when I got here. You know, I was kind to elderly people, you know, that was it. So, but, yeah, well, right. But my point is that there's nowhere in this book that it tells you to write the good things. Barry. Oh, okay. So let's look at some of the, let's look what it says here. Back to page 64. It says we did exactly the same thing with our lives that we did with the business. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup. Doesn't say anything about writing down good stuff. The flaws in our makeup. If you notice in the fourth step, Bill uses the word flaws. In the fifth step, he uses the word wrongs. In the sixth step, he uses the word defects and shortcomings. And shortcomings, 6 and 7, right? So 4, 5, 6, and 7, he uses those words. And somebody asked him one time, what's the difference? What's the difference between flaws and wrongs and shortcomings and defects? And you know what Bill said? This is fact. You could look it up and read it. He said absolutely nothing. I just didn't want to use the same words. So the man that wrote it is telling you there's no difference. The idea of the fourth step is to find the exact nature of your wrongs. Of your wrongs, not your good qualities. Of your wrongs. Again, in the 10th step, we'll start looking at some good things, but not in the fourth step. So we got a couple minutes left. Anybody got a question we want to go over? We'll leave it here. We got a lot of work to do in the fourth step.
So are we preparing to go into a fourth step, or are we just gonna talk about it?
No, you're going to do a fourth step. Yeah. Not everybody's going to want to share their fourth step here. I'd like to hear some of you, but whoever wants to share it, they can, or share some of it, they can. We're not going to go over everybody's fourth step, but we got a few weeks before we get to that. In a week or two, I need somebody to make copies. Who can make copies for me?
I can.
Okay, I'll leave you some. Matter of fact, I'll email you some sheets, and we can make copy for everybody. Okay. All right. So, any other questions, real quick, Mitch? Oh, we're going to expand on that. We're gonna expand on that, Mitch. We're gonna definitely cover that. All right. Anybody online got a question? Okay. Now for you people in Europe that are gonna watch this tomorrow, if you got any questions, call me like you do. That's fine. All right. Thanks,
Hey, Danny.
everybody.
Hey, Danny. Dan.
Johnny, good to see you there. Tom, how are you, buddy?
Hey, can you see this?
Can I
Dan?
see? Let me see. Let me get down to where you are here. See what?
That this is a big book that's spiral bound.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe your book is too far gone, but mine was falling apart, and I went to Staples and I had them spiral bind it.
Yeah, I just got to use a new book because the pages I don't think you can put a spiral on these pages. But.
Okay. All right. See you
Thanks,
next
Dan.
week.
See you guys. Have a good one. Tom, nice to see you. Johnny, see you guys.
Yeah, Danny, whatever you need.
All right. Yeah, I just want to do